I'm Marion Jordan, along with Anita Warren, Denise Blue Copton, and Bertie Hardin. And we are members of the Season Alumni Committee, and we want to thank you for your participation today. Our goal for our activities is to provide stimulating and enjoyable activities which will allow alumni, both young and seasoned, to come together, share their enjoyment, and help bring more alumni to our chapter. So please share your enjoyment to others who are not acquainted with the many things that our chapter is doing so that we can increase our membership. So please do that. Okay, now we're so pleased to have with us a true blue sister, Tayari Jones, who will talk to us today about her book, Silver Sparrow. Now, Tayari is no newcomer to this chapter. She got our Trailblazers Award recently, and she has done another book with the chapter in past years, The American Marriage, I'm told. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. She is the author of 4 books. She's an Atlanta native, and she grew up in Atlanta. We just found out that she attended Mays High School, as did some of our children, and she attended Spelman, as some of our children, around the same time, same years. So we are just so happy, Tayari, that you're taking time to, again, to come to share with your sisters about your book, This is Silver Sparrow, and you're the author of 4, I'm told, right now, right?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I noticed that your literary education and experiences are numerous, and I am so very proud of you. It's wonderful to call you my Spelman sister.
Oh,
So thank you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn everything over to Denise Copton Blue, who's going to lead our discussion and ask questions of you. Oh, wait, before I do that, please, Tayari, tell us about the phone call from Oprah.
Well, as I was saying, you know, one of the things I think Oprah really likes to do is to surprise people and rock their world. I think that's one of the many pleasures of being Oprah, that you can just like roll up on somebody. So you don't get any previous warning that anything's coming. You're just like minding your business and your phone rings. My phone rang. It was a block call and I answered it because I'm nosy. And whenever I see a block call, I want to know who blocked this call and why. Usually, you know, somebody blocking it because they're trying to sell me something. But I said hello. And she said, hey, girl, that's Oprah. And being a good, you know, a proper young lady from the South, I said, ma'am. And she said, I read your book. I want to use your book for my book club. And I said, but it isn't even out yet. And she said, people give me things. And I said, I guess that's true. And then she kept talking, because let me tell you something. You don't talk to Oprah, Oprah talks to you. So she was just talking, explaining to me what would be next. And I was in my car. So I had pulled over because, it was coming through the car speakers. I pulled over and I was in Las Vegas. And if you've ever been to Vegas, you know, there's the strip and there's the rest. I was in the rest. So I'm pulled over and like panhandlers are tapping on my window and I'm trying to shoo them away. And Oprah just talking. But I had 5 months to keep this secret, because they make you sign this non-disclosure agreement. That the non-disclosure agreement, it's intense. There's a line on it that says, money may not be sufficient to recover the damage you will have caused by violating this agreement. So I was like, money may not be sufficient. So Oprah gonna come to my house and do what? Like, what is she gonna do? So I didn't tell anyone, but it gave me a lot of time to think about what it means to have Oprah's name. Literally, Oprah's name is literally Oprah on the front of my book. And at first I found it really intimidating, but then it's very funny that you mentioned Mrs. Carruthers, because I thought about Mrs. Carruthers because she wrote a letter for me when I wanted to go to Spelman, and she put her good name on that letter. So her name may not be as famous as Oprah's, but her name means the same thing to her. And when Mrs. Carruthers put her name on that letter for me, I wasn't afraid or intimidated. I felt surrounded and held up and loved. So I said I should look at this Oprah endorsement the same way, the way I felt all my life when people have put their good name up for me. And that's what happened.
Okay.
Wow.
Sounds good to me. My son-in-law was one of the recipients of Oprah's scholarships. And when they set up her farewell gala, they sent notices out to those men, I think, at least 200 of them, way ahead of time. And that non-disclosure was part of the thing that they had to sign. They couldn't tell anybody.
Money may not be sufficient to recover the damages that you have caused Oprah.
Okay, Denise, we're going to turn it.
Okay, Tayari, hello, I'm Denise Brew-Clompton in the class of 74, and I am so excited to have you here. That book was wonderful. I read the American Marriage, and that was an amazing book as well. So I've been asked to ask questions of you to bring out some of the highlights of the book and other things that you might want to say. So I guess without further ado, here we go. What was the inspiration for writing this particular book, The Silver Sparrow?
Well, like many people, I have sisters. We have the same father, but we have different mother. And they didn't grow up. My sisters did not grow up with me. And I felt all my life like I had a sister and I didn't have a sister. They grew up with their mothers way over in Louisiana, and I grew up right here in Southwest Atlanta. And so it's like I had a sister that was right here in my peripheral vision, but when I would turn around, there was no one there. So I wrote this book just to let her know I was thinking about her. Now, my sister in real life is 10 years older than me. My father is not married to her mother. So it's not that same, bigamy situation in the book, because the difference between real life and fiction is that in my real life, the idea that I had a sister, but I didn't really know her, that caused me a lot of pain. But it's not interesting enough for a book. That's not interesting. 10 years before my parents met, my father had a child. Even though it's a story to me, it's not a story to tell. So when you're changing your real life into a story, the technique my teacher told me, you call it bringing in the walls and lowering the ceiling. It means you take the same situation, but you just make the people so tight that they have to have a situation because of it. So I feel like it is in many ways emotionally in line with my real life, although the details are really different.
Okay. So when you were writing your story, you talked about in the questions at the back of the book that you wrote it from the eyes of the daughters. Did you ever think about writing it from the eyes of the mothers? Or if so, what thought did you have on that?
I wasn't that interested in telling it in the eyes of the mothers, because if it was in the eyes of the mothers, it'd be a novel about man sharing. And I feel like, because, but this is a novel about father sharing, which is actually something more people can relate to, because we all share our parents, right? Like you have one mother and one father, but that one mother and one father can have multiple children. So there's an emotional power dynamic there. Just even in healthy, good families, there still is the sense you have one mama, you got two kids. So, and I was just more interested in and I feel like the question about, I feel like there's so much judgment when you talk about man sharing. Why does she stay? What is she doing? What is she thinking? Does she have low self-esteem? All these questions that encourage us to think, to be here and put the characters there. But when you think about it from the point of view of the daughters, neither one of them chose to be in that situation. And they cannot divorce their daddy. That is their daddy. So what do? How do you move forward with this relationship?
Okay, well, since you mentioned they can't divorce their father, at the end, when he made a choice between the women and the way you wrote it, it appeared that he had divorced and abandoned his daughter, Dana. Why did you write it that way? What was your thought going into that?
When I write a novel, I got to think about, what do I think the people would do in real life? And I feel like in real life, he feels like we had an agreement. I would take care of you and you would live in silence. And they violated the agreement. They upset the agreement that he thought he had, the way he thought that power was supposed to go. And he punished them by pulling himself out of their life. But to me, that is the end. They say the end of the novel, when you're writing it, you say the end of the novel is not what happens. The end of the novel is what happens after what happens. So what happened was that he made the choice to go back to his legal family. But what happened after that is that Dana, now she has access to a life that she can live with a certain kind of integrity, right? Like she has decided that she will not live in the shadows and that her life is what it is. So that's really what I believe is the end.
Hello. Could I ask all of you to mute yourselves? What I'd like to do is go through a few questions with Tayari, and then at the end, open it up for your questions. But since we're on Zoom, if we're all unmuted, then we have the background noises. So if you would, please. Thank you. You talked about privilege and social class, but you talked about Sharice. Is that how you pronounce her name? Sharice? Sharice is having a lot more that she didn't realize, and Dana having things, I guess, that she realized. What was your thought about the issue of social class? Because when I was reading it, it seemed to me that both girls had privilege, even though one was a single mother and the other one had a mother and father. What was your thoughts of privilege going as it spun through the book?
Well, I do agree that neither one of them is poor. And I also know that when you talk about Black families, it takes less money to be considered middle class than for white families, right? Like Black people eat every day, bills are paid on time, then we feel like we're privileged because of the specter and the recent history of such poverty. I think that, yes, so both girls eat every day, and they live a fairly comfortable life. But Sharice, just the status of two parents, that's a community status, having two parents, right? Also, I mean, she just has access to more besides the intangible of the legitimacy, which is the ultimate privilege, to be able to say, this is who my father is, and everyone smiles and says, that's great. That is an incredible mark of privilege. But also, I mean, her mother is a single mother, and she's not getting the full financial benefit of what her father has because he has decided that she's a lower class person. And I would just want to say this question about paternity, that has really been the bedrock of Western literature. Like when you're in high school, you read the Odyssey and the Iliad, it's all about Zeus having his god children and then his half mortal children. But also the African-American slave narrative is all about that every slave narrative almost says, I am the son of this plantation, yet not the heir of this plantation. Like this whole idea that men can decide which are their real kids. Like that is really a huge part of the way society is built. And even if you look at Shakespeare and stuff, it's always like, this is the secret son of the king, who, though this is his bloodline, does not share the money privilege, but also the privilege of position.
That's interesting that you should mention that because for those who haven't looked at it, but the Coming to America, the second one kind of speaks to basically what you just said. One of the things in your book that I had not heard of, wasn't familiar with, I should say, is the Eye on the Sparrow song. Yes, my mother loved that song. She used to sing it when she was doing dishes when I was a little girl. But the silver sparrow concept, or silver, I did not understand where that came from. So
I made it up.
Oh, okay.
Well, but it is that song, Bridge Over Troubled Water. It says, sail on, silver girl. You know that part of the song?
Okay.
Your time is here to shine. All your dreams are on their way. When I was a little girl, I was like, that sounds nice. Your imagination just goes places. And so I always liked it. And I just imagined that Laverne might be humming that song along while she's doing hair. And little Charisse is like, like when you're young, other people just seem to be having such great lives out there. You're like, here I am stuck in the 5th grade and other people out here just doing stuff.
That's interesting. I didn't see that coming. What, one of the things that you talked about in your questions in the back of the book is why importance of people having tolerance for people in messy situations. Why did you feel that was important?
Can you say that again?
Okay. In the back of the book, you have your questions, and you talked about situations, messy situations. And one of the things you were talking about is the importance of having tolerance for people in messy situations. And I was wondering why that was important. Or did I get that question incorrect?
Well, I mean, I do think that everyone, we all know people in messy situations. And just statistically speaking, at least 25% of us in this room are in some kind of messy situation, but we like to think that the messy situations are over here and we're over here. And I think intolerance in messy situations also means you end up having an intolerance of your own life, because everybody ends up in something crazy at some point. Some people are born into something crazy, and then they have all this shame for a drama that they entered that was already in progress. But then, people make decisions, and you just have to be flexible with people, I believe. And learning tolerance for people in books in messy situations, I think, is the first step toward tolerance in your own life for just your own bad mistakes, and that a mistake is not the end of the world, and people can recover and move forward. Like, I feel like that if we're all just so busy being the marriage police, being the sexuality police, being the childhood police, how are people supposed to live?
Okay. When you explain it that way, it kind of gives it dimensions as opposed to the way I was looking at it when I read it. Another question I had of you was, I can't remember the young lady's name. Is it LaRonda, the friend of Dana's?
Oh yeah, Ronaldo. Her daddy's name is Ronald. You know how people do that. They take the daddy's name and put on a letter. Like, once they realize they are not getting a son.
Oh, okay. That particular person, I liked her in her role as Dana's friend. And all of a sudden she's gone. Why did you take her away? Why did you decide that her incident with the car and so forth was a reason to get rid of her as a character?
I didn't get rid of her. That was her part in the story. I mean, I liked her too, but she moved away. This is like when I was in the 8th grade, I had a friend who moved away. It happens. I just felt like I liked her in there, but then she moved because she really was kind of expendable in the life of her father's family. And so they sent her away.
Okay.
And that's also a threat hanging over the head of Dana.
Okay.
That your situation is, tenuous.
In Dana's situation in the bathroom, when they got to the bathroom situation at the gas station, poor Dana had a meltdown, and she was, I guess, upset about being divulging the information on this love triangle with her mom and father. What, I guess, in reading it, what was the reason that you felt or had Dana feel so strongly about staying in the bathroom and not coming out or not divulging the secret?
I mean, this is a secret she's been told to keep her entire life. And she's a little girl. She's a little girl. And this is something she has said, you must never, ever tell. I didn't think that it was a big leap to imagine that a little girl would not betray her mother, her father, You know, she's just locked in. I mean, we all have lines in our lives that we do not cross. We
Okay.
all have them. We all have something. And that was hers. So I think we have different standards for people. I think that we have this, especially, I think this is especially true probably in African-American literature, that there's this expectation that we have people in books should behave like they know they're in a book, right? Like they should behave like they know we're watching them and they want us to think well of them. So they're going to behave for the benefit of these potential readers, or that they're supposed to behave in such a way that puts the best foot forward for the race, or, you know, like, but I think that I really like to write characters that feel like they live in the world, not like they live in a book.
Okay. To that end, I don't know if I misinterpreted, but when Dana and Charisse met up at the end, after having been separate and apart for a period of time, it appears that neither of them went to college, even though during the book they were all talking about going to college. Both of them were talking about going to college. Is it true that neither of them went to college? And if so, what happened? I mean, what was your thinking about them not going?
You know, I think that Charisse didn't want to leave her mama after all of that. She didn't want to leave her mother. And she didn't get into Spelman. She points that out. She didn't get into Spelman, but she didn't want to leave her mother. So she just worked there with her mother. And with Dana, I imagine with Dana, I think she took some classes at Georgia State, but she didn't have the resources and the support to do that. Their lives were really disrupted by this whole thing. Everybody's life was really disrupted. But I think Dana has a better life. She doesn't have college, which is unfortunate. I mean, we all have had the benefit of our education, but I think that she got the benefit of living her life in public. You know, she got the benefit of that. And I think about, just to go back to when the scene when Dana was trapped and was in the bathroom, my heart broke for her. Like that to me is when James crossed a line that could never be repaired. James thinks the end of that book was after the party when he did that to her, you know, when he said to her, you know, get out of my life. But when he left that child out there, and when Gwen saw that he left her baby out there and wherever the hell, that was it. They could never cross. Because before then, I think Gwen really thought that they could have a separate but equal lifestyle, or separate but slightly unequal. But when he saw that he left her baby out there, it was done.
Well, follow up on that. One of the questions I had of you was, Gwen ends up exposing the relationship in the way she did. Was that your thinking, or at least it was mine when I was reading it, that if you're going to leave my child out there in the boonies, wherever they were, all bets are off on our agreement? What was your thinking of her exposing the relationship to?
She was mad. Yeah, she was mad. Like, that's her. You can say what you want about Gwen, but she loved her child. She loved her child. And so, yeah, she was like, oh, this is how we're doing this. That's how she felt. Like, oh, I will blow this up, because she knew it was over. She knew it was over. He left her, it was over. And she was like, you started it, I'm gonna finish it.
Okay. Kind of the same way I felt when I read it. You know, kind of terrible. How did you want us, if you did, to judge James as a good man or a despicable person when you were writing it? Or did you have any thoughts about how we would think about James?
I mean, I figured, I don't think anybody would think he was a good man. I don't think there's any room for that. But I did think that one thing for me, what I think of when I write, is I try to think, okay, how do characters imagine themselves? How does if I can't figure out how a character could explain his behavior, I can't write him. So this is what James thinks. James thinks, see if I can get in my James mode. James thinks, every time a woman has come to me and says she's having my baby, I have married her. I have left no woman unmarried. Furthermore, he thinks, what does he say? I just want to marry a woman one time who's not already pregnant. That's also what he thinks. you know, you got to remember that James was also forced into a child marriage. He was forced into a marriage when he was 16 years old too. So he has that thing not on his side, but it kind of mitigates his behavior. But when I felt like when he told Dana, you are the secret, when he said that to a child, then that is irresponsible. That's really, when he enforced that caste system, to use a term that's in vogue, when he laid down a law on that caste system, that is when that to me is when he made his moral transgression. More so than the fact of Dana's existence is not as big of a crime as the fact that he put her on this separate track for her whole life.
When you were writing it, did you write it with the idea that he loved one more than the other, loved Dana more than Sharice?
I think he loves them differently. I think he really believes that certain people are, I think that certain people, he thinks that certain people belong on different tracks. So he thinks that his love for Dana is appropriate for a person like Dana. Okay. Like he doesn't think she is as high ranking as Sharice. And it's not that he loves her more, because when you say you love one more than the other, it suggests that that relationship is a result of that person's personality or something about your connection. He has this idea of rank. He thinks they rank differently. You see, so it's slightly different, but I think as far as the women, which does he love Gwen more than Laverne? I think he feels like he is obligated. See, this is how cheaters work. I don't know if you know any cheaters. This is how cheaters think. Cheaters work like this. Cheaters, one woman, the woman who's the wife or the official woman, feels like he is my man. He comes home to me every night. I am his wife, so I'm more important. And then the other woman, the cheater, has her thinking, he's with her because he has to be, but his relationship with me is entirely voluntary. So I am the one with the passionate relationship. She is the public, agreed upon, obligatory relationship. But I'm the one where the fire is, where the magic is, where the fantasy is. So they both do have they serve different purposes in his life. I mean, if it was up to him, he'd just have everybody. Like, he ended up making a choice, but if it was up to him, he wouldn't make a choice.
Okay.
It'd be like, you know, you get an ice cream cone, you get 2 different scoops on the ice cream cone. You look at that whole thing, 2 scoops. You don't think, which one of these scoops am I going to give away? You think, I like these scoops. They go well together. And that's the way he looks at them.
I don't know what I've done to my screen, but I've done something to it.
I can fix it. What's it doing? How many? You don't see enough people?
Right. Go
down to the bottom and where the little icon for Zoom, and when you tap it, everybody will come back. This happened to me yesterday. I was giving a speech and I couldn't see anybody. I just stared at the green light.
And Denise, I've tried. While you're finding that, Denise, there's a question that came in for Tayari from Jean Harvey Johnson. Jean, do you want to ask?
Absolutely. Let me just quickly recount it. So I love this book. I loved it so much. I listened to it on Audible. And from then on, I was reading everything that you had done on Audible. I was just taken.
Thank you.
So extraordinary. And I'm so pleased that the Alumni Association pulled this together. It is just amazing. Thank you. I'm really interested in the relationship between James and Riley and how you structured that subordinate relationship, and it stayed subordinate forever. Like I couldn't even wrap my mind around how Riley wouldn't defend Dana. It was all too much for me. I was so emotional about it. And it was when it was suggested after the grandmother passed that Riley take over James's responsibilities with respect to Gwen. I thought, Houseway, who comes up with this? How would you even voice that? So I thought that was a really creative and interesting twist that also ratcheted up my emotion and my hostility for those men. It was just really interesting. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, Riley, bless his heart, Raleigh does have this subordinate relationship to James, but everybody doesn't want to be president. Some people like to be chief of staff. Like Raleigh enjoys feeling indispensable to this whole scheme. Like he is loved and needed. Everybody in this. So he feels like his biggest fear is abandonment, right? He was abandoned as a child, but he has this role that can't be taken away. James, you cannot get your bigamy off the ground without a wingman. And Raleigh is like, you need a wingman? I got a wing, let's go. And so Raleigh is his wingman. He enjoys that position. And that is more important to him than everything. So no one will stand up for Dana if it means they'll lose their position in the family. It's like they love her, but not that much. And it's kind of an interesting thing. Like sometimes I'm so glad that Gwen did, I'm saying this like I'm not in charge, but I'm so glad that Gwen did not marry Raleigh. Like you think this is messy now? The level. Can you imagine what would happen on Thanksgiving? Like everybody's supposed to get amnesia. Dana's supposed to forget that James is her daddy. So I think that it was hard for him. It was hard for everyone. I mean, one of the things this story that is seldom talked about in this story, that so much of what happens in this story happened because Miss Bunny and Raleigh's mother had to work as maids. I was writing this part when everybody was reading The Help, which makes it seem like for a Black woman, being a maid is not a job, but a calling. And the point is that every time a woman is a live-in maid at somebody else's house, her own children are without a mother. So the kids were wholly unsupervised because Miss Bunny had to go live at the white people's house. And Raleigh exists because his mother was raped by the white man that she worked for and then was abandoned. Like this domestic servant thing, this, leftover vestige of slavery sent this whole plot in motion. And the other thing that sends these whole plots in motion is that women did not have access to safe, reliable contraception. That's why all these stories happen. And it's so hard for us to get our heads around it now because, we're so used to I was born in 1970. So, the pill came into wide usage in 71. So I barely got in here under the wire. But now that but people are so accustomed to having birth control, you forget how women's lives were biology was destiny in a whole different way.
Tayari, before I turn it over to the group for individual questions, one of the things I would like, and I managed to get back here. I don't know how I did it. I kept punching on things, but in any event, I'd like to know what your inspiration was to go into writing. How did you start writing? How did you decide whether to self-publish it or have a publisher, those kind of questions? How did you start out in your career as a writer?
Well, I do believe that when it comes to writing and art, that if you do your part and believe in yourself and do everything you can, like God meets you halfway. I guess that's true on all things. I wanted to go to school to study creative writing, but I didn't have a way to do it. I was afraid. Everybody in my family thought it was stupid. Even when I finished Spelman, there was this award at Spelman that Alice Walker funded. The person who won the award would receive $10,000. And it was for the young woman who is more or less going to be a writer so that she may look around calmly and find her way. That was the exact text. I committed it to memory all those years ago, but I didn't get it. And I found out that I didn't receive the award because there was a fear that I would take that $10,000 and try to move to New York and be a writer, which was exactly what I thought. I thought $10,000, I could retire on that and just, live forever. And so to keep me from doing that, the award was suspended that year. And so I went to get a PhD in literature. And so it was like I was a bird and I was being trained to be an ornithologist. And so I wrote to Pearl Clegg, who was my mentor when I was at Spelman. And I said, I don't want to be in graduate school. I don't want to get a PhD in English. And she said, you don't have to. I was like, what? Wait, what? And she said, yeah, you don't have to. Your life belongs to you. It doesn't belong to your parents. So I dropped out of that program and my mother was horrified. She was like, if you don't get your PhD, you'll spend the rest of your life explaining why you don't have one. And I said, I don't know, Mommy. I think it's a lot of people that don't have a PhD. But being as my parents both have PhDs, my mama said, really, like who? Who doesn't have a PhD? And I was like, I don't know, but they're out there. I know somewhere. But anyway, so I wrote a book, and it was a terrible book. It was a dog of a novel. But it was completed. And I knew it wasn't good, but I knew I had tried my best. But I know that my best today won't be what my best is tomorrow. So I said, okay, I wrote one book, I can write another one. And I'll keep writing another one until I write one that's good enough. Meanwhile, I took 10 pages out of the dog of a novel and I published it in a really tiny literary magazine. It was probably had a circulation of 24. Well, you can't tell because I'm sitting down, but I'm a very tall person. And all my life, I've been this tall since I was 12. I was bigger than a teacher. All my life, I was afraid that it was only a matter of time before I ran over a petite person. But I had gotten to be about 25 and it had not happened. And I went in an elevator, y'all, and I ran over a petite person. I was like, oh my goodness, petite person, are you okay? You know? And the petite person said she was fine and that this happens to them a lot. But I told her my name and she said she had seen the one story I had published. And she said, come to Arizona and work with me. I'll help you. I'll be your mentor. And I was like, oh no, ma'am, I can't move to Arizona. It's hot out there and they don't have a king holiday. And she said, it's only hot in the summer and we have had a voter referendum. So we'll have a king holiday by the time you get out there. And I told my parents and they were like, no, nobody gets a degree in creative writing. That's like getting a degree in basketball. That don't make sense. And besides, it's hot out there. And mama said, and they don't have a king holiday. But I convinced them that I really wanted to try and be a writer. So I moved out there and I wrote my first book. It's called Leaving Atlanta, which is about growing up in Atlanta during the child murders. And I didn't know how to publish a book, but I asked my mentor there and she told me all about how to get an agent. And I had asked her, should I self-publish it? Because I thought as a Black person, you know, everyone tells you can't get published. Black, they won't appreciate your Black story. And she told me, she said, you will not self-publish this book. She said, when you self-publish, you are trying to do 10 jobs. You're going to be the writer. You're going to be the editor. You're going to do the cover design. You're going to do the marketing. She said, and you're going to be competing with other writers who had one thing to do. Someone else, their one thing to do was to write a book. And here you are with your book where you've done 10 things. How can your book stand up? So she helped me find an agent, et cetera. And that's how I came to publish my first book.
That's well, I guess I hadn't said anything because I was sitting here in rapt attention. That's amazing, actually. I'm glad I asked that question. I think I would like to finish my questions and open it up to the group to ask questions of you. And what I'd like to do, since we're on Zoom, and rather than raising hands and me being the question answering police, if you could unmute yourself when you have a question, as the other sister did, ask your question, and then the next person. And if you would recognize that we're not going to be on here all day. So if you have a question, please ask one question and not 2 or 3 or 4 subparts to that one question so that we can give as many people a chance as possible to talk to our author. And I can say that I am so delighted to have had the opportunity to ask these questions of you, but more especially to have been in your presence and listen to you. You have been amazing. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
So the first person, please, who wants to ask the question, please unmute yourself.
I have one, Denise.
Okay, Marion.
Okay, Tayari, how did Dr. Cole fit into encouraging you to write? She referred to you as a writer. When? And tell us about that.
Okay, you know, I am the biggest Janetta Cole fan ever. I don't know if you all know this, but I am working on a fundraising effort called Dream the Boldest Dreams, a scholarship to honor Dr. Cole. boldestdreams.org. Come on.
We got it.
But I was just a little puppy. When I came to Spelman, I was the youngest girl in the class. I was 16. I wanted to be a writer. Well, I won't say I wanted to be a writer because I didn't know I could be a writer, but I knew I liked to write. And I just got caught up in the rapture. When I saw Dr. Cole as president of Spelman College, it was the first time I had seen a woman really in charge of something, and her position in charge of it was that throne was hers. You know, because like you know, they say like a female headed household, that just means the man is not present. Like she's the household, she's leading the household by default, but it's not really her place. But when I saw Dr. Cole at Spelman, that was her seat. That was her position. And I just got brave. And I said, I want to be an English major. And I said, I would like to be a writer. And, you know, she smiled at me and I didn't think anything else again. And then saw her walking across campus. You know how back in the 80s, we all thought we could get in shape by walking very fast. Remember that? That power walking, that was the thing. So she was wearing the Spelman sweats with Spelman down the leg. She was walking across the campus and she said to me in that big voice, she said, Tayari, how's the writing? And I hadn't been writing. I had been thinking about it, but I hadn't been writing. And I was so anxious. And then I said, I'm working on it. And I said to myself, I said, self, the next time I see this lady, I'm gonna have something to say. And that just really, I mean, she took me at my word. I squeaked out, I would like to be a writer. And she took me seriously. I had never been taken seriously before. And I knew that it's like I had signed, you know how your old people say, don't let your mouth write a check. Yeah, I felt like I had written a check and I had to make sure that I could cash it by doing this thing I said I would do. And I look at that as the day my life changed.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have a question?
I have a question, but I have a comment. I listened to your book on Audible and it was really a good book. I really enjoyed it. And so I liked how the stories were parallel. And I tell you, when we got to Sharice, when she started telling her side of the story, I was kind of in shock because I thought,
I know.
I thought she would be so different than what she was. She's kind of selfish and, and just, and Dana was the one who had to give up a lot for Sharice. And the attitude that Sharice had, I mean, but a phenomenal book. You did an excellent job. Very good.
Thank you. Well, the thing about the 2 points of view is this. The most radical thing you can do in the book is change point of view. Like that is a radical change. And so you have to make sure you have to do it. But I felt that I got halfway through the book and I had run out of what Dana could show me. I really wanted to know what was going on in James's house. I needed someone who lived over there to tell me. And so I let all those people from that side of the world have an opportunity to tell a story. And I just thought Sharice told it best. And the thing about Sharice is this, and this is probably coming from my own life. She is not aware that she has everything. She just thinks she lives a normal life. When you're a child, you don't think that having your parents is a privilege. You think they just came with the house. And that's what she thinks. So when her dad says, would you like an ice cream cone? She's just not aware that she's, snatching the ice cream cone out of Dana's hand. She just thinks she's a regular person with problems. She thinks I'm chubby. I don't really have a lot of friends. She does not know that her daddy has a whole secret life over here oppressing people. So her attitude cannot be adjusted toward what she doesn't know about.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly.
So you made a point, and I didn't think of Sharice as being selfish because of what you just said. I just, she has no idea that that there's this child out there who is not getting all of this stuff because of her. But I wanted to ask, you made a point about Dana and her mother, Laverne, being pretty and having, a lot of hair or pretty hair, and Sharice and her mother not being that attractive. And I wanted to ask just about how that dynamic played into your writing, or the decision to make, one mother and daughter not as attractive, or it sounds like, or at least they thought they weren't attractive. And I just wanted to know, what was your mindset in making the decision to not make them attractive or not feel that they were attractive?
I had this fun time with drawing Gwen and Dana as being these pretty women, and this idea too that they were pretty, that they were dark complexion with long hair. Because from looking at books, you would think that people are either very dark with very short hair or very light with very long hair, right? Like those are the ways that the literary tradition has the camps divided into the way people look. So I did like the idea of them being brown skinned beauties, that, you know, that they're just knockouts. And also I didn't want them to be overly tragic. Like I didn't want them to be like, we're the secret family, we're not cute, we don't have any money. Like you got to give every character something, right? They got to have something to deal with. And I wanted them to have something also to be confident about, so that they just wouldn't be so tragic. And then Laverne and Charisse, they're not unattractive. They're just not knockouts. They're just regular. Like they're just a regular mother and daughter, you know, living their lives, feeling like all of us. Laverne thinks she should lose some weight. I mean, she's not like doing anything drastic about it, but you know, just like all of us, she's like, I should work out a little bit before my big party. She's just a regular woman. So it's not that one is attractive and one is unattractive. It's that one couple, one mother and daughter are knockouts and the other ones they're fine. And that was also a fun thing with the weave as the great equalizer. That's why when Charisse gets to weave, Dana, it's like, what? Other people having hair? Just wait a minute. That's how she feels. She feels like this hair is the one thing I've had, and now other people just getting hair willy-nilly. She's like, I want to talk to the manager.
But I love that aspect of it because, you know, I also have seen I love that she was dark, Cicely Tyson dark, I think you said, and beautiful hair and just, you know, silver, a silver girl. I love the expression.
And just think too how Dana didn't feel like her good looks got her anything, because looks are just part of the equation of what you have in life. And that was another thing, that it's not just, there's no magic bullet. There's one thing you have it and everyone loves you. And all young people envy other young people. No young person thinks she has it made. That's one thing I learned as a grown-up, meeting people that I knew in high school and everything who seemed to be the silver ones. They never felt that way when you talk to them.
Right. And also, I think it's interesting that Charisse doesn't realize, you know, and she, again, felt like she was unattractive, but she didn't realize all that she had with her father, you know, giving her so much, and how this other child has been sacrificed, can't work at Six Flags because she's working at Six Flags. That, he made me so mad. I got to tell you, the only people that I did like in the book were the children, were the girls, because and Raleigh, I like, you know, Raleigh was okay.
And Miss Bunny.
Yeah, Miss Bunny was fine. But man, those are, I guess I did get very emotional. Jean told me to read the book, and I read it. I just finished it like last weekend, and I called her up and I was like, Jean, for real. Oh my God. I was like, she was like, girl, we're texting each other like, girl, oh my God, I cannot.
Yeah, it's hard. You know, once you may have this uneven system, there's no way around it. I thought I had another copy. I wanted to show you. I can't find it. I wanted to show you the European copy, but I don't see it. I had it right here. Okay, ask the next question. I'm listening. I'm just like,
that's what I want to talk to you, because the first time I met you, the book that you were talking about was at a book group here, at the group in Atlanta. You said you didn't like the cover and that you had no choice in it. And I wonder if now you're able to choose the cover. I don't.
No,
Tina,
they don't let you.
They
don't like you to choose your own cover because they feel like you're getting out of your lane. They feel like they know what covers work, and they don't let you choose them.
So they still won't let you choose.
No, and you know what? Even though I think I can tell them when I don't like a cover, but I can't tell them what will make it right. So I like to look at different covers. They listen to you. They just don't listen to you a lot. They listen to you a little bit.
They're like, I have a question of you. We talked about Oprah's book club. How did you get on President Obama's summer read list? Did you, is it something he did on his own, or was it solicited by you?
Yeah, no, I mean, you have, okay, isn't this awesome?
Yes. Oh, I like that one.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, it's that's the one to match the UK covers, because see, this is what they did for An American Marriage, so they match. See, it's like a thing.
Oh, okay.
No, all these things like getting on reading lists, you can't do anything about them. Those people have, totally beyond you. And it's made up by committees that you don't know anything about. Like, I didn't know I was on Barack Obama's list until I was on it.
Okay.
Although it was a great day that I got on his list because I had been played. I had been invited to Martha's Vineyard to do an event, and they told me I was headlining. Then when I got there, they had this other person who was headlining, and I did it for free. I would not have come all the way out there doing it for free anyway. So I wasn't, and I was really mad, and I was kind of humiliated, and there was nothing I could do because I couldn't like get mad and leave, because that's not a good look. Like, oh, she's walking out because she's not the headliner, you know, that makes you look away. So I was mad. And then the next day we were all checking out a hotel, and I was just so embarrassed and mad. But I had gotten the morning of, I woke up that morning because my phone was off the hook. Everybody was calling me and they said, you're on his list. And so therefore I got to walk through that hotel lobby in front of the people who had treated me so poorly on President Obama's reading list. And you know what? They all knew, and they didn't say a word, but I knew, and they knew that I knew that they knew.
Very good.
Anybody else have any questions or
I
comments?
have a statement.
Yeah.
This is Lois Griffin, class of 1971. I'm a librarian, and we just ended a big read program here in Griffin, Spalding County. And we did Emily St. John Mandel's book,
Station 11.
Station 11. But I just want to say I was so impressed that you're talking about the Oprah list, but Silver Sparrow is on the National Endowment for the Arts book list. It is still on the list, and I don't know how long it has been on that list, but I think that's a very high honor for that.
I was delighted to be on the big read list. Then we all got taken off because, you know, we had some problems up in Washington, D.C. these last 4 years.
I didn't realize that.
But I think they're going to put us back on. Yeah, they only wanted
it's
books
still
that
on
were,
it. It's still on the list.
They bumped us because, you know, the person that was in charge of the country, they had decided they only wanted books that affirm the American tradition. And you know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
If I may ask one last question.
Yes.
I saw that Issa Rae was going to produce Silver Sparrow into a film or a television production or something like that. And I was wondering if you were able to share any scoop.
You know, I don't have any Silver Sparrow scoop. That option hasn't expired. The thing about options, you know, you see people saying, oh, this has been an option for film. This has been option. An option is the least amount of commitment they can make to a story. It is really just saying, the option is the famous person saying, hey, I might want to make a movie out of this. Would you agree not to sell the rights to anybody for a year while I decide? That's all it means. I will tell you, you definitely will see An American Marriage on the screen before Silver Sparrow. I'm, you know, non-disclosure is real, but An American Marriage is the one to keep your eye on. And I'm excited about it. It's exciting to me I'm writing screenplay for the first time, and it's so much fun, but it's so different because when you write a novel, you say, how does love feel? How does jealousy feel? But when you write a screenplay, you have to say, what does it look like? What does love look like? What does love do? The people need to go out and do some love, which is really different. It has to be something you can watch people do.
You're writing the screenplay?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, you know, they had other people writing it and it was just wrong. And finally I said, well, maybe I could try it. And so I have a co-writer and it's really fun. I work with him. We get on the Zoom about 4 hours a day and we work on it and we act it out together. And he's younger than me, and it's nice actually to have that young person's point of view, but we act it out. As a matter of fact, I was doing it just before I got on here. And so we act out all the scenes.
Can I ask, do we have time for one more question?
We got time.
Yes.
I just wanted to know, I am a writer and I have been working on my first novel. I've written short stories more so. And I just want to know a little bit about your process because I've been kind of struggling a little bit. And I just want to know a little bit about your process. Now, part of it is that I got 2 kids that run back and forth in the screen and everything. Sorry. But what is your process like?
I don't outline or anything. Tina, do you outline? See, now I've called her out. But Tina been doing this longer than me.
Yes. I just noticed she's on the.
Well, first of all, this is so wonderful being here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
And Tayari, I love her. I love her so much. And she's one of those people, and writers are very competitive, I'll say, whether we admit it or not. And Tayari is one of those writers that every time I see something happening there, I just grin and smile and feel like, oh, look at that. Look what Tayari's done. I mean, it's so wonderful to have somebody that you can just love on, Cavell over everything that she's doing because, I've like she said, I've known her since she was a little girl. You were a little girl, when you left Spelman, not 21 yet, probably. And, all her success and Tayari and I have even had a little something going on and we figured it out and all of that. So I know that's a lot. But from outlining,
Talking about Tayari now. Tayari.
I like to have
mute yourself, Nicole.
But a beginning, middle, and end. Or sometimes I draw a picture, of the town, and I had a road novel once, so I drew, from Macon to from Mulberry to Atlanta, and so I had this spot they see here, this spot they see here. You just have to do something, Tayari, I think, to organize your thoughts. That's all that outline is for me.
I don't outline at all. I just get in there. I don't know what the people gonna do. I write to figure out what they're gonna do because that is what motivates me to come back the next day. So I try to.
Do you know where they're going? Do you have like a middle? You just have a beginning.
And then sometimes what I thought was the beginning isn't even the beginning. I would have thought it was the beginning, and then it turns out to be the middle. But that's what inspires me to come back the next day to write some more. Like I'll leave them at a high point. Like when Dana and them was trapped in that gas station. I stopped. So the next day I was eager to get back and get going. And
there's no feeling like that, huh, Tayari?
That's when it's working well. But like right now, I'm not writing. I can't get my head right to do the writing. I think it's because there's so much going on with the pandemic and everything. Like right now, I got one thing I had like up until very recently, I had one thing on my mind, getting my parents vaccinated. That was my reason for living. And I thought about it all day, every day. I got them vaccinated. Yay. And so I'm going all the way down to Long County to get my vaccination. But I couldn't make the case for writing fiction when all these really serious things were happening in the world. But I'm trying to get back into writing. So what I do is I get up in the morning and I have this timer. Let me see if I can find it. See, I'm disorganized today, but I have a little timer. Here she is. She looks like a bee. She's a timer. And I set the timer for 1 hour. And then I take one of my typewriters and I put the typewriter on the desk and I try for an hour because I say, I can't tell myself how many words I want to write today. I can't only goal I can make is how hard I try. And so I just keep trying. And my experience has been when the writing isn't working, I just try, and then it'll catch fire.
You said if you're timer for an hour, but you just
getting up. No getting up. Don't look to the left. Don't look to the right.
Okay, I got you.
1 hour. You just sit your little hiney down for 1 hour and you just try and write. And if you can't write, just sit there and you'll get so bored you'll write something.
Tayari, do you go any particular place, like you hear about writers having to go to the beach or to their whatever place?
I would
do
love
you
to.
have any special?
I mean, if I had a beach house, I would sure enough go to it, but I don't. So I just write them. I think about, sometimes I get all cute, but I remember I wrote my first book literally in a closet. So here I am, a person who wrote a book in a closet and want to get up here now and being like, I need natural light. I need to have the right clothes on. I need to be drinking green tea. I wrote my first book in a closet drinking Coca-Cola. And I just remind myself, like, come on, get over it. You use what you have. But no, I would love to go to the beach and write.
Tayari.
Yes.
Marion Cole's class of 1960. I know that Tina has done a writer's clinic at Spelman in the past. And you're at Emory now, but have you ever thought about getting re-involved with Spelman and the students over there?
I would love to get re-involved with Spelman and the students. I would love to teach a class, but I had this bright idea that maybe I could teach a class, like Emory would release me from one of my classes and let me teach it at Spelman. But if I do that, then Emory students would have a right to take it. And I wouldn't want to come to Spelman to give my Spelman students a non-Spelman experience because I'm trying to have a Spelman experience.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I would, and I'm hoping that, you know, when things, I've been at Emory such a short time that maybe when I've been at Emory a little longer, I can throw my weight around a little bit. But as it is now, I just got there.
Yeah.
Tayari, do you have another book planned? Do you have another book planned aside from your screenplay?
Excuse me?
Do you have another book planned beside your screenplay?
Weather is nice, isn't it? It's been so beautiful.
You are priceless. Does anybody else have any comments, or Tayari, do you have anything you want to? Oh, I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Hall has her hand up. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Shirley Liggins Hall, class of 1960. Hi, Miriam.
Hey, Shirley.
I was so fascinated with your development of your characters. As soon as I get a complete distaste or something for someone, you would show another human side of that person, of that character. And I think that's very difficult to do. By the end of the book, I saw a full side of everybody. And it was sort of like, this is the way the world is. And when we're looking at other people, it means that you need to see them in more of the fullness, because we're not all bad. We're not all good. And looking at that picture, your book just forced one to look in a deeper way. And the other thing I wanted to say is I lived in Massachusetts for many years and am very familiar with Martha's Vineyard. And the Black folk there did not accept Michelle when they were in the White House because they thought she was a little bit urban, you know. And so I am just delighted that you're on his book list.
Well, that just tickles me and makes me happy. I lived in Massachusetts for a year where I wrote a lot of American Marriage when I was in Cambridge. Yeah, and it was a whole different, you know, you think you from Georgia, you think you know bouginess, but you don't know it till you get that. It's a whole different level.
It's a whole different thing. I went to Harvard too. And so I spent many years around in that area, and I do know.
it's okay. Like here in Atlanta, people may judge you for what you have and where you are, but up there, they want to know what your grandmama had. And I thought,
well, especially on the vineyard, and whether or not you got a yacht to ride up from New York.
Yeah, who knew? I had never. I was like, wow. I guess I always thought that was a myth, but no.
Well, I live in Massachusetts. And I was raised in Atlanta, and coming to Massachusetts was a big cultural shock for me. It was I couldn't believe that the difference in just how people were. Yes. It was amazing. So when I meet people who from another country and they tell me how they're feeling, I said, well, you know, I know how you're feeling because I'm just coming from Atlanta to Massachusetts was culture shock for me.
Right.
Coming to Spelman from a little town in Georgia was like going to Massachusetts.
Tayari, I have a quick question for you. Yes. Madeline Nick's class of 67. It says President GGS in the sign out, but that's because I don't know how to change it. No technology skills. But my question for you is, what's next? What's your ultimate goal? What would you like to do? What's on your bucket list, wish list? Don't want to leave the earth before you accomplish?
You know, it's really funny. I sometimes ask myself that, like, you chase a dream, what happens when you catch it? You know, I've managed to catch this dream, and now I have to, you know, recalibrate and decide what I want to do next. I think that one of the things I want to do next, obviously I need to write another book because I'm under contract. But I think that I want to try and, like, I would love to collaborate on a play with Pearl. I have a great idea for one, trying to win her over to that and learn how to do something new. But I also would like to get involved more philanthropically and do something to help Black people who want to become writers, and not just young people, because I think a lot of people have really important stories to tell and they're not young. And a lot of times when we think about making a difference, we automatically go to the young. But there are whole generations of stories that have not been told. And I don't want to think of girls in the future writing our stories because we didn't have a chance, you know, and then the next generation writing those stories. You know, no one can tell our stories as well as we can right now. And that's what I really want to do. I want to work with grown people who have stories to tell.
Okay. Are there other questions?
I have a comment. And I never identified myself before. I'm Elise Strongman, class of 93. But I was recently teaching fiction writing at Spelman. And Tayari, I worked on a short story of yours. And I can't, it was been a couple years, but it was in the Atlanta Noir book about.
Oh, I know that story.
Anyway, I love that story, and the students really, really enjoyed it. And I just want to tell you, you capture Atlanta in all of your books. Because I've also, when I was getting my MFA, I read Leaving Atlanta, and I've read another short stories. But that one, I loved it. But my students, they loved that short story, and they were, and I was very proud to say, it's your Spelman sister. This is your Spelman sister. But they really got into, and there were a lot of students who were from Atlanta, and they could just feel the culture, and just, you know, it was a great story. I don't remember. I wish I remembered the name of it.
That makes me so happy because, first off, I didn't know anybody read that Atlanta Noir. But secondly, the fact that people from Atlanta, representing Atlanta, is a big part of what I do. I feel like I'm trying to bring regional literature back. When I was living in New York, I lived within a mile of every major American writer. And even though these writers came from all over the country, and even some of them from all over the world, we're all drinking coffee at the same coffee shop. And that is going to make a sameness about our writing. So part of the reason why I wanted to come back home is that I wanted to be an Atlanta writer in Atlanta. So yes, I'm not in the loop the way I was when I was living right there in Brooklyn, but I feel like creatively I'm home, and I think it's going to make me a better writer. And I think it's going to make the representation of Atlanta stronger. And I don't want everybody to feel like they have to move in order to be a writer. The thing about being a writer is supposed to be that you can do it from anywhere. But we've got all these young people thinking you can only do it from New York. And I'm here to say that's a myth.
All right.
Mary, I have a question that I wanted to ask you because it's reminding me of where you started this conversation, pulling in the walls and lowering the ceiling. And when I think about the way that you described Miss Bunny, we all have a Miss Bunny, right? And what struck me is how Laverne's mother, you know, you hear these stories of back in the day where young women, they didn't know how they became pregnant. They were just pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
No one had this conversation. It was never anything that we addressed. And what struck me is with Miss Bunny, who had sons, the first thing James said was, you need to talk to my mama about that.
Yeah.
How this happened. And it's a conversation that I think still exists in the community. So even though we were pulling in for This is Atlanta, I thought about SWATs. I thought about, you know, our little area of Atlanta, but then I also thought about the broader conversations that you were able to bring into this one novel and how it affects all women, whether it's the issue of the parents being women or being young girls and how we're treated, even from sitting on someone's lap that uncle slap, all of those things really stood out. So I appreciate and love your work, but also would like to hear more about, is it a conscious decision on how you bring those things into focus, both narrowly and expanded?
Well, thank you for that. That means a lot to me. For me, I feel like if I tell the truth, I'll tell the whole story. Like if I just try to think of everything that I think is going on, and I don't hold back because I'm trying to make a pretty picture. And also, though, at the same time, it also makes me tell the truth, even about someone like James, to think about even his good sides, because I'm not trying to write an ugly picture. I'm trying to write a real picture in the way that I think that women's lives really work, because we think of our experiences multidimensionally. Like that's how we think about ourselves. But for some reason, when people get ready to write or tell a story, they write a story that's not as complicated as they know the world to be. Because I think we want to protect people, and we have an image we need to get out there. Even subconsciously, we're under so much pressure to represent well that we will start representing a lie. And I just have to fight that impulse and do the whole thing. Yeah, and have that uncle in there, and have, James have this secret family, and have, Raleigh, who's such a nice guy, not stand up for Dana. Even though, we were liking him, but I had to be honest. Would he stand up for Dana? No, he would not. And who are these boys who are 18, 19 years old messing around with these young girls? It's a real thing. And that's what I just have to be committed to the truth wherever the truth takes me.
Thank you for that.
Tayari.
Yes.
We understand the difference. Your parents were married, and this was before they were married, that your stepsisters were born. How did they relate to your book, or did they relate to it?
I am very happy to say that this book was a successful intervention.
All right.
Yes, this book is the most personal and most important to me in this. And this book, and not only did it help heal my family, let me tell you what happened. I was in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and a Black lady came to a book signing, and she had like 8 or 9 copies. She asked me to sign them. I thought she was a book club. You know how people have book clubs, they send one representative. So I signed the books, chatting with her, and then she left. And then when I came back from a paperback tour, she was there, and she gave me a present. She said, don't open it till you get back to your hotel room. And I opened it, and it was a picture of her and about 5 or 6 other people, give or take. And they were all holding the book. It was men and women. And she said that when her father had passed, they found out he had all these other children. And she bought this book as a gift for everyone so they could have a conversation without having to talk about themselves. They could talk about it. And she said it helped bring them all together. And I felt like this is what the book is for. Every book I've written, I've had an experience with one person, and I felt like, oh, I was sent to write this book for you.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Hi.
Does anybody else have any questions,
Hello,
comments, or Tayari, do you have anything else you
Yes,
want to
we
say
do.
to us before?
I hear somebody talking. I'm here. Yes.
Hi,
Okay.
Sora Denise. Do you hear us? Hello,
Oh,
can you
sorry.
I hear you.
Okay. This is Erin Searles, a class of 2003, and my sister Erica Searles Mitchell, 2000. Just want to say, really a fan, totally. Actually, my first book that I read of yours is An American Marriage, so I'm a backwards person, and I read the newest book first, and then started going backwards.
But I've read everything that you've written, including. I'm fangirling out because I love Tina, and I've met Mrs. Ansa at Spelman when I was there as well. But we just wanted to say, Silver Sparrow is actually my favorite book, even though I identify more with Celestial. And I just wanted to say thank you so much to the Seasoned Alumni Committee, because this has been excellent. And thank you, Tayari, so much for coming and share with us. We really did have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you very much. Excellent program.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so glad y'all had me here today. And our sisterhood, I just want to end by saying our sisterhood means so much to me. Someone asked, how can you support me in other ways than buying the books? Y'all support me just by being there. I mean, when I was having a hard time, Silver Sparrow almost didn't get published. I was having the hardest time, yet alumni, some of whom I knew, some of whom I didn't, would occasionally reach out to me and say, how are things going? I'm waiting on your next book. And the idea that there were people waiting on the book, even though I had been told the book would never be published, that meant a lot to me. And when An American Marriage came out, Spelman sisters came through all over the country. Everywhere I went, there were Spelmanites there, everywhere. And even when I went to Boise, Idaho, this Black woman came. She said, I didn't go to Spelman. I went to Howard, but my sister went to Spelman, and she told me to show up, that you cannot be up here in Boise and not have anybody there. And I was in Australia. And I was tired, and I heard someone call my name, and I looked, and it was one of my classmates. I said, Sabrina, what are you doing here? And she said, it's not that far from Seattle. I didn't want you to be up here by yourself. So, I mean, the Spelmanites have come through in ways, I mean, that I just could not have imagined. Even when I was getting sued for $500,000, it's a long story, but I was getting sued, and I called these lawyers, and the lawyers came to the meeting, but I was on the phone. So they were in the room with my agent. And then the woman lawyer called me back, and she said, I don't know if you could tell this on the phone. She said, but I am Black. She said, but more importantly, I didn't go to Spelman. She said, but my mama did. And I'm going to take this case, and I'm going to fight for you on behalf of my mother.
All right.
And let me tell you, she jumped out from behind the bushes, scared them people. She beat them back. I did not have to pay them a dime. So the sisterhood is everything to me. So I want to thank y'all for having me. This has meant so much. Thank you always.
Well, we want to
I
thank
saw you in
you.
Jamaica.
I mean,
Oh, yes, ma'am. We took a picture together.
Yes, we
thank
did.
you so much.
Everywhere.
Yes.
At home and abroad. Always at home because we're together.
Will you
All
have
right.
a signing event where we can come?
Sure. And you know, we can do, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but I have, if you email me your address, I have these, I'm in a disorganized room, but I have these book plates, and what they are, I don't think I have any up here, but they are, they're like rectangular, and they have my initials, and I can sign them, and you can stick them in your book, and they match color-wise. And so then you can have a signed book, and they look really nice. It doesn't look like, when I put them in the book, they don't look like something, as my mom would say, they don't look mammy made. It looks purposeful. So yeah, so just email me, tayari.jones@gmail.com. It's going to get a bounce back, but ignore that. I do see it. It's going to say something like, I don't see this email, but I do.
So Tayari Jones at
gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's going to bounce back, but don't ignore that. I really do see it. It's going to say, I'm so sorry, I don't check this. If you want this, talk to this person. You want that, talk to that person. But I do see it.
Okay, great.
It's just so I can pretend like I don't see things.
Well, it doesn't look like there's any other, unless someone says something.
Do you have
But
a director? Is there a director for American Family?
Is there a director? Nope, not yet. No director yet. They're trying to do it. They're not even announcing anything until all the pieces are in place. We'll see. I mean, I hope I get to be in it. Not a big part. I don't need to star in it, but I just want one speaking role.
Walk on role.
You can make
Tayari, I'd like to say to you, thank you so much for participating with the seasoned alums. And actually, we hosted it, but with all of us, your Spelman sisters and any friends that were on. This has been a delightful, delightful afternoon, and I so very much appreciate it being here with you. You've been just wonderful.
Before we close, could I just ask one more question?
And to all,
Jean, go ahead.
I'm so sorry, just one question. It dawned on me because I was thinking about all of the short stories that I had listened to on Audible, and I listened to Dispossession. And I was trying to figure out, how do you decide whether it's a short story or a novel?
Well,
because I feel like you could have written about dispossession and those relationships. And I thought there was so much rich stuff there.
Yeah, I still want more.
Subplots. Novels have subplots. Short stories have one thing. Yeah, novels have subplots. But
I thought the dispossession had the potential to have subplots.
It also, Audible, they hired me to write something that was 1 hour. But those Audible things are really fun. If y'all are on audible.com, I have 2 new short stories on there. They last about an hour a piece. And this is trifling, but I will tell you, Audible probably doesn't like me saying this, but You can go to audible.com and sign up for a 1-month trial, and then you can cancel it because the 1 month is free. That's all.
I didn't cancel mine. I've become addicted.
I know, I do love it. I mean, I love the audio. It's so much to give you something to do, especially during this time when we're so housebound. It gives you something to occupy your mind.
Yeah.
I am going to say again, if
He's like, we're shutting this down. All right, everybody.
No, actually, I could stay here for a while, but we had said that we were going to put a time limit. So the next time we had something, people wouldn't say, oh, it's that group. They drag things out forever. But the momentum of this has been wonderful. And I could sit here a little longer, and I would be happy to if anyone else has anything to say. Hearing nothing, I am going to turn it over to my co-chair. Again, thank you all for being here. And if you see seasoned alum hosting something again, please join us. It is intergenerational. Everybody is welcome. We just want to have a wonderful fellowship and sisterhood time, whether you're a Spelman sister or wish you had been a Spelman sister. I'll say it that way. But anyway, thank you all. And I'll turn it over back to my co-chairperson if she has anything to say. Marion?
Just loving kisses to Tayari. We thank you so very much. You are our true blue Spelman sister. Thank you again.
Oh,
and thank you everyone who supported this activity. Please look for the next season alumni activity. Thank you, Tayari. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. I'm like, oh, group hug.
Yeah.